Story 1. After spending 6 years saving every penny while living in a tiny studio apartment and working 2 jobs, I finally achieved my dream of homeownership. It wasn't anything fancy, just a modest 3-bedroom house in a quiet suburban neighborhood, but it was mine. Every squeaky floorboard, every patch of peeling paint, every outdated fixture, all mine. I'd spent weeks researching the area, and everything seemed perfect. The crime rate was low, the schools were good, thinking ahead for the future, and the community had a reputation for being friendly. Well, mostly friendly. I should have known something was off when I was moving in. While my parents and best friend were helping me unload the moving truck, I noticed this woman standing in her driveway across the street, just watching. Not in a curious, "oh, new neighbors" kind of way, but with this suspicious glare that made me uncomfortable. Still, I waved politely, trying to start things off on the right foot. That's when it began. "Karen, excuse me, what do you think you're doing?" "Me, just moving in. I'm the new owner." "Karen, that's impossible. The previous owners would have told me if they were selling. I'm the neighborhood watch captain, and I know everything that happens on this street." "Me. Oh, well, they listed it pretty quietly, but I have all the paperwork if you'd like to." "Karen, I'm calling the police. We don't allow squatters in this neighborhood." "My friend, hey, what's your problem? He bought this house fair and square." "Karen, stay out of this. I've lived here for 15 years, and I know a criminal when I see one." Officer 1. "Ma'am, this is legitimate. He's the legal owner." "Karen, that paperwork could be forged. Did you run it through forensics? Check for watermarks?" Officer 2. "Ma'am, we've verified everything through dispatch. Please stop calling us unless there's an actual emergency." I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. Over the next week, the police showed up 3 more times. Each visit went the same way. "Karen, he broke in again. He's probably selling drugs." "Me, here's my ID and paperwork." Again. "Officers, ma'am, please stop calling us." I installed security cameras after the second police visit, just to be safe. Best decision I ever made. I caught her taking pictures of my house, peering in my windows, and even trying to look through my mail. I filed harassment reports, but since she wasn't actually damaging anything, the police said they could only give her warnings. Then came the day that changed everything. I was at work when my security system sent an alert to my phone. The footage showed Karen walking up to my front door with a locksmith. "Karen, yes, this is my rental property. I accidentally locked myself out, and my tenant moved out without returning the key." Locksmith, "I'll need to see some ID and proof of ownership." She actually produced a fake deed. The locksmith, probably not used to dealing with forgeries, accepted it and changed my locks. I immediately called the police and rushed home, but the worst was yet to come. When I pulled up to my house, there was a moving truck in my driveway. A family with 3 kids was unloading furniture. "Father, oh, hi, you must be the landlord's maintenance person. The toilet in the master bath is running." "Me, I'm not the maintenance person. I'm the owner of this house. Who told you you could move in?" "Mother, we rented it this morning through Facebook Marketplace. We already paid the deposit too." "Oh no." They showed me the listing on their phone. Karen had listed my house for rent at $800 below market value, collected a $2,000 deposit through a payment app, and given them the new keys. The police arrived to find a very bizarre scene. Me, the actual homeowner, locked out of my own house, an innocent family who'd been scammed, and Karen screaming from her driveway about how she was just trying to protect the neighborhood from criminals. The evidence was overwhelming. The security footage showed everything: her lies to the locksmith, her illegal entry, even her taking photos inside my house for the fake rental listing. The icing on the cake was the forged deed she'd shown the locksmith. Apparently, she just edited her own house's deed in Microsoft Paint. The police arrested her for criminal trespassing, fraud, and forgery. But karma wasn't done with her yet. Remember how she kept saying she'd lived in the neighborhood for 15 years? Turns out she was renting, and her landlord watched the whole thing unfold on our community's Facebook page. She was served with eviction papers the next day. The family who almost got scammed. I felt terrible for them. They had kids and had already given notice at their old place. While Karen spent the night in jail, I helped them get their deposit back through the payment app's fraud protection. Then I put them in touch with my real estate agent, who found them a legitimate rental nearby. As for Karen, she's facing multiple felony charges. Her preliminary hearing is next month, and both the locksmith and the scam family are testifying against her. The police are also investigating whether she's pulled this same scam before. I still live in the house, but I upgraded my security system. The new neighbors who moved into Karen's old rental are lovely. They brought me a housewarming gift and didn't accuse me of being a criminal once. The community Facebook page had a field day with the whole thing. Someone even made t-shirts that say, "Neighborhood watch, but mind your own business." I bought 3. My home may not be perfect, but at least now I can focus on fixing those squeaky floorboards instead of defending my right to live here. Though I have to admit, the security cameras are staying up, just in case another self-appointed neighborhood vigilante moves in. Story 2. I've been in the military for 15 years, serving 3 tours in Afghanistan as a combat medic. Life was good until 2 years ago, when our convoy hit an improvised explosive device. I lost both my legs below the knee, but I was one of the lucky ones. I made it home alive. After months of rehabilitation and learning to navigate life with prosthetics, and sometimes a wheelchair, I decided it was time for a fresh start. I found this beautiful house in a quiet suburban neighborhood, perfect for my service dog and me. The price was right, and the location was ideal, close to the Veterans Affairs Hospital, where I still had regular appointments. Moving in was the easy part. I used most of my savings to make the house accessible, including installing a professionally designed wheelchair ramp at the front entrance. The contractor assured me everything was up to code and had all the necessary permits. I even chose materials that matched the house's exterior perfectly. 3 days after the ramp was completed, I heard aggressive knocking at my door. "Karen, open up." Homeowners Association president speaking. I wheeled myself to the door, my service dog right beside me. "Me, can I help you?" "Karen, this ramp is completely unacceptable. It's destroying our neighborhood's aesthetic value." "Me, ma'am, I'm a disabled veteran. This ramp is necessary for my mobility." "Karen, well, you should have thought about that before moving to a neighborhood with strict architectural guidelines. I don't care if you're a veteran, rules are rules." "Me, I have all the necessary permits and approvals." "Karen, those permits weren't approved by the Homeowners Association board. I'm giving you 48 hours to remove this eyesore, or you'll face fines of $100 per day." I spent the next week trying to reason with her, sending her copies of the Americans with Disabilities Act regulations and my permits. She responded by plastering my mailbox with violation notices. My neighbors were surprisingly supportive, with many stopping by to welcome me and apologize for Karen's behavior. Then, one morning, I was having coffee in my kitchen when I heard construction sounds outside. Through my window, I saw 3 workers starting to dismantle my ramp. "Me, excuse me, what are you doing?" "Worker, just following order, sir. The Homeowners Association president hired us to remove this unauthorized structure." Karen was standing on the sidewalk, arms crossed, looking triumphant. "Karen, I warned you. You have no one to blame but yourself." What she didn't know was that after her initial threats, I had installed security cameras covering every angle of my property. I also had a lawyer, a fellow veteran who specialized in disability rights law. I immediately called both the police and my lawyer. "Me, these workers are trespassing and destroying my property. I have everything on camera." "Karen, I am the Homeowners Association president. I have every right to enforce our regulations." "Me, Actually, you don't. What you're doing is illegal. Karen. Oh, please, what are you going to do about it? Sue me? My lawyer, that's exactly what we're going to do. I hadn't even noticed my lawyer arriving. He lived nearby and got there before the police. Karen, who are you? My lawyer, I'm his attorney, and you're in serious trouble. We have video evidence of you orchestrating the illegal destruction of accessibility equipment protected under federal law. The police arrived moments later. After reviewing my permits and camera footage, they ordered the workers to stop immediately. Police officer, ma'am, you're facing multiple charges here. Destruction of property, violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act, and possibly hate crimes against a protected class. Karen, this is ridiculous. I'm protecting our property values. My lawyer, you're discriminating against a disabled veteran, and we have it all on video, including your previous threats and harassment. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of legal activity. My lawyer filed a federal lawsuit against both Karen personally and the Homeowners Association. The other board members, horrified by her actions, immediately called an emergency meeting where they voted to remove her as president and issued a formal apology to me. The lawsuit was settled out of court. Karen had to pay for a new, upgraded ramp, cover all my legal fees, and pay substantial damages. The Homeowners Association revised their regulations to explicitly protect accessibility modifications and implemented mandatory training on disability rights for all board members. But the best part? My neighbors, who had watched this whole drama unfold, suggested we throw a block party to celebrate the new ramp and Karen's removal from power. Everyone pitched in. It was like the whole neighborhood turned out. During the party, my next-door neighbor approached me with a grin. Neighbor, you know what's really ironic? Karen just listed her house for sale. Apparently, she can't handle the shame of facing everyone after what she did. Me, any idea where she's moving? Neighbor, some condo building downtown. No Homeowners Association. Guess she's had enough of those. The party lasted well into the evening. We set up tables along the ramp, which became the perfect serving station for the potluck. Kids were using it to race their toy cars, and several elderly neighbors commented on how they wished more houses had such well-designed ramps. 1 month later, Karen's house sold to a disability rights advocate who immediately installed their own wheelchair ramp. I heard Karen lost money on the sale because buyers kept bringing up the lawsuit during negotiations. Sometimes karma works in mysterious ways. The ramp has become something of a neighborhood landmark now. People often stop to admire it, and it sparked several conversations about accessibility in our community. 3 other houses on our street have since installed similar ramps, all with proper permit, of course. The best part? Every time I wheel up that ramp, I think about how Karen's attempt to remove it actually made our neighborhood more inclusive and united than ever before. My service dog seems pretty pleased about it too, especially since the new, wider ramp gives him more room to walk beside me. Story 3. I've been working at the same grocery store for the past 7 years, steadily climbing from a part-time bagger to head cashier. It's a decent job with good benefits, and I genuinely enjoy helping our regular customers. My manager even put me in charge of training new cashiers because of my patience in dealing with difficult situations. Little did I know that all my experience would be put to the ultimate test one busy Saturday afternoon. I was working the express lane when I noticed a woman with an overflowing cart heading my way. Usually, I'd politely direct her to a regular checkout lane, but all other lanes had long lines due to our big weekend sale. She had this smug look on her face as she approached, clutching what looked like an old, yellowed piece of paper. Me, good afternoon. I should mention this is an express lane, but I can serve you if you're willing to wait for the other lanes to clear up. Karen, oh, I know exactly where I am, and you're going to check me out right now because I have a very special discount. She started unloading her cart. It was packed with premium items, organic produce, high-end meats, imported chocolates, and several bottles of expensive wine. The total was climbing well over $500. Karen, Now, before you finish, I have this advertisement that clearly states all store items are 90% off. She slapped the paper on the counter. It was an ancient newspaper clipping, so old that the edges were brown and crumbling. Ma'am, could I take a look at that advertisement? Karen, be careful with it. I've been saving this for a special occasion. The ad was from our store, all right, dated July 15, 2014. It was from our grand opening celebration, when the store had offered a one-day 90% discount on select items with a maximum purchase limit of $50. I apologize, but I can't honor this advertisement. It's from 2014, and it was a one-day grand opening special with specific terms and conditions. Karen, what do you mean you can't honor it? A sale is a sale. There's no expiration date printed on this ad. Actually, ma'am, if you look at the fine print, it clearly states, valid only on July 15, 2014, from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Karen, that's ridiculous. I demand to speak to your manager. My manager was already heading our way, having noticed the commotion. Manager, is there a problem here? Karen, yes, your cashier is refusing to honor your store's advertised prices. This is false advertising and illegal. She thrust the ancient ad in my manager's face. Manager, ma'am, as our cashier explained, this advertisement is nearly 10 years old. We cannot honor it. Karen, well, I'm not leaving until you give me my 90% discount. I've been planning this shopping trip for weeks. Other customers were starting to stare. Some had their phones out, already recording. Customer 1. Lady, just pay the regular price or leave. You're holding up the line. Karen, stay out of this. This store is trying to scam me, and I won't stand for it. She pulled out her phone and started dialing. Ma'am, who are you calling? Karen, the police. I'm being held hostage by this store and scammed out of my money. Manager, ma'am, calling 911 for this situation would be a misuse of emergency services. Karen, emergency services. Yes, please help. I'm at the grocery store on Main Street, and they're holding me hostage and trying to scam me. Please hurry. The entire store fell silent, except for Karen's theatrical sobbing into her phone. 3 minutes later, 4 police officers burst through the doors, hands on their weapons, expecting a hostage situation. Officer 1, everyone stay calm. Where's the threat? Karen, officers, thank goodness. These people are trying to scam me. I have proof of their advertised prices, and they're refusing to honor it. The officers' faces quickly shifted from concern to annoyance as they realized what was really happening. Officer 2, ma'am, did you just call 911 over a coupon dispute? Karen, it's not just a coupon. It's false advertising. I want them all arrested. Officer 1, ma'am, please show me this advertisement you're talking about. Karen triumphantly handed over the yellowed paper. The officer took one look at the date and sighed. Officer 1, ma'am, this advertisement is from 2014. Calling 911 for this is a misuse of emergency services, which is a criminal offense. Karen, but they're scamming me. Officer 2, no, ma'am, you're attempting to use an expired advertisement from nearly a decade ago. That's not a crime. However, making false emergency calls is. The situation got even better when another customer approached the officers. Customer 2, officers, I'm a lawyer, and I recorded the entire incident. She clearly stated she'd been planning this for weeks, which shows premeditation in misusing emergency services. Karen's face went from red to pale in seconds. Officer 1, ma'am, we're going to have to issue you a citation for misuse of emergency services. The fine is $1,000. Karen, what? This is outrageous. I want all your badge numbers. I'm calling the newspaper. Manager, and you're permanently banned from all our store locations. I'll be sending your photo and this incident report to every branch in our network. Karen, you can't do that. I've been shopping here for years. Officer 2, ma'am, either accept the citation and leave peacefully, or we can discuss this further at the station. While she was being escorted out, still screaming about lawsuits and customer rights, my manager pulled me aside. "Manager, I want to commend you for handling this situation professionally. Starting next week, you're being promoted to front-end supervisor with a $3 per hour raise." The story didn't end there. Someone had posted the video online, and it went viral. Local news stations picked it up, using it as an example of the rising trend of people misusing emergency services. Karen's dramatic performance became a meme, with people mocking her hostage situation claims. The corporate office sent out a company-wide memo using this incident as a training example, and they implemented a new policy for dealing with extremely outdated coupons and advertisements. They also started putting expiration dates in larger print on all promotional materials. We later found out that Karen had tried this same stunt at other stores in neighboring towns, but none had bothered to press charges. She'd apparently made a hobby of digging up old advertisements and trying to strong-arm stores into honoring them. The police investigation revealed she had made similar emergency calls at other businesses, which led to additional fines and mandatory community service. Now, whenever someone comes in with an expired coupon, the other cashiers jokingly ask if they should call 911. The incident even inspired our store's new employee training video about handling difficult customers, though they had to hire an actor because the real footage was too ridiculous to believe. Story 4. I started working when I was 14, the moment I was legally allowed to get a job. My parents taught me the value of money early on, and I had this dream I wanted to buy my own car when I turned 16, without any help. Not a used car, not a hand-me-down, but a brand new one that I chose myself. For 2 years straight, I worked every weekend at the local grocery store, picking up extra shifts during school breaks. During summer, I'd work at the community pool as a lifeguard in the mornings and help my uncle at his detailing business in the evenings. Every dollar I earned went straight into my savings account, except for a small amount I kept for lunch money and occasional movies with friends. My parents thought I was crazy at first. My dad kept telling me to just let them help with the car, but I was determined. I had done all the math. I knew exactly how much I needed to save each month, including insurance costs, maintenance, and even a buffer for emergencies. I tracked every penny in a spreadsheet. Finally, after 2 years of working nearly every day, skipping parties, and saying no to expensive outings with friends, I had enough. The day after my 16th birthday, my dad took me to the dealership. I had researched extensively and knew exactly what I wanted: a new Honda Civic Sport, black with gray interior. Nothing too flashy, but reliable and within my budget. The dealership staff were skeptical at first, probably thinking I was just some kid wasting their time. But their attitudes changed real quick when I pulled out my bank statements and proof of savings. 4 hours later, I drove home in my car, bought entirely with my money. It was the proudest moment of my life. That's when the trouble started. I live in a nice suburban neighborhood where most families are upper middle class. Our next-door neighbor, Karen, has a son about my age. He drives a used BMW his parents bought him for his birthday. I'd never had any issues with them before, but everything changed the day after I got my car. I was washing it in our driveway when Karen came storming over. "Karen, where did you get that car?" "Me, I bought it yesterday. Just got my license too." "Karen, don't lie to me. That's my son's new car. He's been saving for months." "Me? No, ma'am, this is definitely my car. I have all the paperwork." "Karen, a teenager can't afford a new car. You must have stolen it. My son's been talking about buying this exact model." My dad, coming outside after hearing the commotion, "Is there a problem here?" "Karen, yes, your son stole my boy's car. He must have taken it from the dealership before my son could pick it up." My dad, "That's ridiculous. He bought this car with his own money. We have all the documentation." "Karen, documentation can be forged. I'm calling the police." She stormed off, but no police showed up. I guess they had better things to do than investigate her clearly false claims. I thought that would be the end of it. But Karen wasn't done. 2 days later, I was in my room doing homework when I heard the distinct sound of a tow truck backing up. I looked out my window and saw Karen directing a tow truck toward my car, which was parked in our driveway. I ran downstairs, my dad right behind me. By the time we got outside, the tow truck had already hooked up my car. Me, stop, that's my car. Tow truck driver, ma'am here says it's a stolen vehicle. Karen, smugly, that's right. This car belongs to my son. I have proof of purchase right here. She waved some papers that looked suspiciously fresh from a printer. My dad, I'm calling the police right now. Me, here's my registration, insurance, and purchase documents. They're all in my name. The tow truck driver looked at my papers, then at Karen's. It didn't take him long to figure out who was telling the truth. Tow truck driver, ma'am, these papers you showed me are clearly fake. The watermark is wrong, and that's not even the right dealership logo. He immediately started lowering my car back down. Karen, what are you doing? I'm paying you to tow this stolen vehicle. Tow truck driver, I don't participate in car theft, ma'am. And that's exactly what this would be. That's when Karen completely lost it. She ran to my car, pulled on the handle, thankfully it was locked, and then started screaming. Karen, this is my son's car. He deserves this more than some grocery store worker. Then, to everyone's shock, she pulled out a key, a poorly made copy that she must have had made when she was snooping around my car earlier, and actually managed to get the door open. She jumped into the driver's seat and tried to start the car with her fake key, breaking it in the ignition in the process. Fortunately, the police my dad called arrived just in time to witness her attempted grand theft auto. The look on her face when they pulled her out of my car was priceless. Her son arrived home from soccer practice right as they were putting her in the police car. Her son, Mom, what did you do? Karen, I was trying to get you the car you wanted. This little punk doesn't deserve it. Her son, what? I never wanted his car. I don't even like Hondas. This is so embarrassing. The aftermath was epic. Karen was charged with attempted grand theft auto, presenting false documents to a tow company, and criminal mischief for damaging my ignition. She had to pay for the repairs, plus a hefty fine. Her son apologized to me the next day, explaining that his mom had become obsessed with keeping up appearances in the neighborhood. He was actually saving for a used Jeep, not a Honda at all. The whole incident made its way to our neighborhood Facebook group, where people shared similar stories about Karen's entitled behavior over the years. She ended up deleting all her social media accounts after people kept tagging her in posts about car theft and bad parenting. The best part? My car insurance actually went down after I installed a new security system with cameras. The insurance company said I was impressively responsible for my age. These days, Karen crosses the street when she sees me coming. Her son got his Jeep. Eventually turns out he'd been saving up too, working as a referee for youth soccer games. We actually hang out sometimes, united by our shared work ethic and his mom's craziness. I still wash my car every weekend, but now I do it in the backyard. Not because I'm afraid of Karen, I just got tired of people stopping to tell me how they saw the security footage of her arrest on the news. Story 5. A man stands alone. He sits alone. He lies alone, waiting for a battle he does not know is coming. No streaming services, no quality time. Juan prepares for another hot, dry, and dangerously uneventful day. His mind is his own enemy, or so he thinks. A flurry of dust, a gathering of living confusion enters the horizon. Juan is under attack. Excerpt from my perspective on westward expansion, titled, How the West Was Juan, a story about a man facing potential exile from both his literal and figurative home Mexico and Arizona. I truly believed this day would go on without incident, just like the previous 40 days. And then it happened. I received a message from a parent demanding that I accurately score the final exams I graded for my Algebra 1 class, which I taught to the most advanced 8th graders. along with students whose parents frequently protested not being allowed to take the course. This was an anticipated call, in a way. The district I work for administers a final exam that consists of 42 questions. The final is recorded as a raw score out of 42 and is heavily weighted in the final grade calculation. Roughly 80 homework assignments combined equal the same value as the 42-question final. I have taught this subject for years under the same administration most of the time, and they have permitted me to apply some leniency in the grading process. This leniency means that I do not record a final score lower than 60%, regardless of the actual score. The only exception is if a student does not take the exam, in which case it must be entered as a 0. One particular student, whom we will call Juan, performed especially poorly on the exam. Juan is the type of student who procrastinates, rarely completes homework assignments, and does the bare minimum. Behavior-wise, Juan is respectful and well-mannered. He is genuinely a good kid otherwise, but he puts very little effort into paying attention during instruction or even attending class regularly. The rest of the class, about 90% of them, scored between 25 and 35 out of 42. Entering the raw scores with an 80% weight is a tedious task, but it gets done. For students who score less than 60% on the test, about 25 or below, I enter their score as 60 followed by their raw percentage. For example, if someone scored 13% or 31% on the test, their recorded score would read 60.13 or 60.31, respectively. I do not announce this to the students, but they are generally aware of the system. I have applied this method in situations where students truly struggled with the material. There are no retakes for the final exam, and Juan scored 15 out of 42, which is approximately 35.7%. I entered his score as 60.36 and proceeded with my semester. His parents later saw his grade change significantly. At first, I was unsure how a student who did not complete homework had led his parents to believe he had maintained an 80% average earlier in the semester. I later discovered that he had taken a screenshot of his grade from the first week and used it as evidence. When his father called, he immediately said, "Hey, you made a mistake in grading Juan's final. You're supposed to be a math teacher." He then proceeded to strongly criticize me until I managed to interrupt and explain the grading process. I finally clarified that Juan scored 15 out of 42, and that the recorded score of 60.36 was actually much higher than his raw percentage. He did not seem to grasp this, and language was not a barrier for him. He expressed his frustration quite colorfully. Eventually, after venting, he demanded, "You need to score this test accurately. Change the grade now." Well, since you put it that way. I knew that changing the final grade from 60.36% to 35.71% would result in a failing grade for both the final exam and the overall course, and that is exactly what happened. I documented the process, taking pictures to show how the scores affected the final grade. I pressed delete 5 times and entered 35.71 as his final percentage score. Failing the class became a major issue. The principal had to get involved to communicate with the parents, with me present in the meeting. Only then did they finally understand what I had been saying all along. The principal stated, the teacher was actually trying to help Juan. But the reality is, Juan has not demonstrated mastery of the Algebra 1 material, so he will need to retake the course. Juan's father appeared very apologetic during the meeting. However, his actions ended up affecting future grading policies. This situation also shed light on a larger issue. If the proficiency bar was set at 55%, why were other students required to score higher than that to pass? The district had a notorious habit of determining the proficiency threshold only after students had taken the exam. Unsurprisingly, the proficiency level was usually set close to the district-wide average score. Over time, I came to realize that this district, the education system as a whole, and even I myself were all part of a flawed system, one that often felt like an illusion. As the comedian Dave Chappelle once put it, we were all just living in another man's dream. Sorry, Juan. Story 6. Growing up, my grandmother was the only constant in my life. She raised me and my siblings when my mother couldn't be bothered. My stepfather, on the other hand, treated me like I was nothing. He was cruel, controlling, and took pleasure in making my life miserable. He never respected my grandmother either, treating her like a servant rather than the woman who kept the family together. My mother allowed it, never standing up to him, never protecting me, never even acknowledging the way he made me feel. Despite everything, my grandmother always found a way to comfort me. One of the last gifts I gave her was a jade pendant wrapped in real gold. It cost me $200, but she was worth every cent. I also bought myself a rose quartz pendant, something to remind me of her whenever I needed strength. She wore that jade pendant every single day until she passed away in January 2022 due to complications from the virus that had taken so many lives. Not even a full day after she passed, my mother told me she was going to clear out her room by the end of the week. Less than 24 hours. It was as if my grandmother never mattered to her. By the time I went to check, her room was already empty. And that's when I saw my stepfather standing in the hallway, a fat wad of cash in his hand, looking pleased with himself. Me, where's Grandma's pendant? The jade one? I want it back. Stepfather, I sold it. Everything in her room belongs to me now. I had never felt rage like that before. My grandmother wasn't even gone a full day, and he had already sold the one thing I wanted to keep of hers. My mother stood by and let it happen. I knew right then that I would never forgive them. The next day, I put my plan into motion. My mother and her husband relied on me for so much, and they never even realized how much of their comfort came from me. That was about to change. First, I went after the thing that mattered most to him, his brand new laptop. The very laptop he bought with the money he got from selling my grandmother's pendant. I filled the bathtub, took his laptop, and submerged it in the water. I let it sit for a good 10 minutes, making sure the damage was done. Then, I dried it off meticulously and placed it right back where it was. Next, I took his laptop charger and made a small, nearly invisible cut in the wire. Not enough for him to notice immediately, but enough for it to stop working soon. But I wasn't done yet. I went to the kitchen. My mother and stepfather had depended on me for so much, and I was the one who had bought most of the appliances and essentials. The air fryer? I donated it. The microwave? Gone. The plates, bowls, and cups? Donated. The pantry cabinet I bought to store food? That, too, went to people who actually needed it. They weren't going to live in comfort off my kindness anymore. Then, I took every single toiletry item I had bought for the bathroom: shampoo, soap, toothpaste, everything, and locked them in a storage box. If they wanted any of it, they could buy their own. The final touch. I had proof that I was the one who bought my grandmother's pendant. I made sure his workplace was aware that he was a thief, that he had stolen from a grieving family member. I don't know what kind of consequences he faced at work, but I can only imagine it wasn't good for his reputation. By May of 2022, I was gone. I moved out, left them to deal with the mess they had made, and never looked back. I went completely no contact, and life has been better ever since. He thought he could take everything from me. He thought there would be no consequences. But in the end, he lost far more than he ever expected.